Hello, Twitch. We are here live at AWS reInvent 2019, coming at you from the middle of the expo hall. My name's Nikki. We're going to be talking about an awesome launch with Aurora in machine learning today. But before we get started, let's have my amazing guest and hilariously dressed co-host introduce themselves.
Hey, my name is Yoav Elad, a product manager for Amazon RDS, Relational Database Service, and Aurora, based in California.
Awesome. And before you actually say who you are, can you just do a twirl for us? Everybody just see what he's wearing. Amazing.
Thank you.
And you are?
I'm.
Did you forget who you were?
Offended that you said hilariously dressed. The designer for this outfit is very exclusive and
We're
very
getting some
expensive.
comments here. What is he wearing? Please roast him. You guys, no problem. I got this.
I'm A.M. Grabelny, one half of the A.M. and Nikki show, I guess, is probably what I'm best known.
Yeah, this show?
Yeah. I'm a senior.
Yeah, not dressed like that. I'm kicking you off the show.
I'm a senior solution architect. That's what I do professionally, and very well dressed.
Yeah. I don't know about that one.
Okay.
Might have to. We'll talk about that after.
All right.
Anyways, let's get to the good stuff.
Yeah.
So before we talk about what's launched today, for those of us watching that are not familiar, what is Aurora?
So Aurora is a cloud database, so you can launch it in the cloud with just a few clicks. It runs as it's what's called a managed database service, so we do all the backups, updates, all of that for you. You don't need to install it, you just launch it and you have something that you can use with your applications.
Love it. Makes my life so easy. So I heard you launched a new feature last week. What was it? Tell us what it is. What is the magic?
Okay, so Aurora Machine Learning is a way to run machine learning on the data that you have in Aurora, in your relational database. So I don't think anybody could have missed the fact that AWS is doing a lot around machine learning.
Yeah.
And it's kind of hard to miss at this event. So this solves one part of the puzzle, which is, what if the data that you want to run the machine learning algorithms on is in a relational database? How do you get it into those services? So you would have to traditionally, find some way to, query for that data, send it to the machine learning service, reformat it, move it back, handle all of that.
It's a lot of work. There's a lot of pre-processing of that data that would have to occur.
Exactly, and not a lot of people have tried it. Like, I think we haven't seen a whole lot of people doing that online. I think it's more typical that people just go, they dump all that data into some desktop tool, the data analyst or machine learning expert runs it, and then whatever, and then when the results are back, then he maybe goes and puts it back into the database. It's a lot of steps.
And then when there's new data in the database, you need to retrain that model and do the same process over again.
Yeah, that might also be something that you would need to do. It's a lot of steps, and it's kind of scary.
And the people who are doing this are generally data scientists that are very expensive. Right?
Correct.
So spending time on this is often not really
Exactly.
budget friendly.
Exactly, and there's not enough of them, but there are many, many more people who know how to develop an application and to do
Yes.
SQL queries to a database.
Yeah.
So we wanted to enable it for people who have that expertise, and there's many, many millions of those, obviously.
Makes a lot of sense.
So can you briefly explain how this new launch works, like how the services are communicating to actually effectively perform the training?
Sure. So first of all, let's separate it, like everything in machine learning, let's separate that into training and inference, which means
Yes.
doing predictions.
Absolutely.
Right. So the training step is a little bit easier with this launch. I would say that this one is mostly focused on inference. So after you've trained your model, or you got a model from somewhere, you don't necessarily have to train it yourself. There's a lot of pre-trained models.
Absolutely. I've used a lot of them.
Exactly. And there are services at AWS that are already pre-trained, comprehend, translate, recognition, all of that. The models are there. It's been trained on.
Yes, my beloved APIs.
Yes, and you call those APIs. But what if you don't want to call those APIs? So you can run everything from within a SQL query. So you, as a database developer who knows how to run SQL queries, you will simply say, I want a query for all the whatever data that fits a certain query condition, and I want to get, as a result, I want to get the predictions on the data that, for example, if it's linear regression or whatever other algorithm you want to run. I want to get those results as and you just put that in your SQL query and you get the results, and you don't need to think about all the integration. How is Aurora going to call the other services? You don't even ever see that. Your favorite APIs are just getting called from Aurora, from behind a SQL function.
So SageMaker was where you would go to train that model if you had a custom model. How does Comprehend come into play here?
Okay, so Comprehend is the simplest case, and I actually want to show a demo of how that works. So Comprehend, for those of you who are not familiar, it's a service that can analyze text.
Yes.
And
sentiment analysis, natural language processing, key phrases, syntax, you name it.
Exactly. And the feature that we're using is sentiment analysis. So basically, you put a piece of text, this Launchpad session is the greatest I've ever seen. And it says, the sentiment was probably positive. It looks like that person loved the session. And you could say that it's terrible, and hopefully it will detect that. It's been trained on millions of pieces of text already, so you don't need to train it yourself. And then from Aurora, you can just say, I want to query for all the rows where the comment is probably in some column in my table, and I want to query for the ones where the sentiment was positive, and it'll return that result. So if you want to see a demo, we can do that right now.
I definitely want to see a demo.
Let us do
you
that.
Drop the word demo. Again, that's all I can think about after you said it.
There we go. OK. So let's go to my screen. So what we see here, I launched MySQL Workbench, standard MySQL client. And you can see that, you can't see it yet, but I have a table here with comments. And what I will do is I will do a select statement where I call a SQL function called AWS Comprehend Detect Sentiment. And I pass along the text and the language, in this case English.
Oh, wow.
And I will get the results.
Straight up in SQL.
Straight up in SQL. I don't know even that Comprehend is a service. I don't know how to connect it. I've never seen your APIs. I've seen nothing. I'm just a SQL developer, and this is what I use. All right? Thank you. So let's run this. And I have 4 rows in this table. Are we? And you see here, are we live?
Are you guys able to see this demo?
Looks like
Sorry, 1 second. Technical difficulties. I feel like I have voodoo today or something, because every time I get next to a machine, it stopped working today. This is a trend that's happened to me consistently since yesterday.
Yep.
You probably shouldn't put me on stage with you.
OK, you bring bad luck, but now it's fine. So you can see that these are the results. I have 4 rows in the table. This is very useful. Thank you for writing it. Sentiment was positive with a confidence. This is a typical thing that you do, is you query for, show me the sentiment equals something with a confidence level of so-and-so. And depending on how certain Comprehend is with these results, it'll give me the positive and negative. Let's.
So does this work for any type of database engine in? Oh no, sorry, Aurora.
It works for Aurora. MySQL and Postgres, which is currently just about to get launched, but this works for MySQL. Let's try your own text, Nikki. Why don't we enter something and let's see if it can detect it properly. You want to type something in that's very negative or very positive. Let's see what happens. OK, let's run it. I really don't like negative with a 96% likelihood.
That's how I feel about your hoodie.
Yeah.
So you know.
Anyway, it works.
Everyone's a critic.
Oh yeah.
Mostly me. Mostly me.
Everybody's got an opinion, huh?
Yeah.
I mean, I always got one.
Do you need to run Comprehend on everything she says, or is it pretty much negative all the time?
No, it's negative.
It's only negative if he's on stage.
I'm on
It.
stage.
Okay.
Because I have to consistently tease him 100%. Like, they always want me to roast him, which is no problem for me.
Yeah.
Follow-up question.
Yeah.
How do you see customers using this, or what are some example use cases that you've already seen taking advantage of this feature?
OK. So a few things. And keep in mind that we're all within the context of when do you want to run machine learning on relational data that you have in a relational database?
Yes.
A few examples of that. So one of them is sentiment analysis, obviously.
Right.
Typical case, you have a website, there's some feedback page where people can put in reviews or feedback about your product, or customer service requests. And if somebody says something really terrible, I hate your service, I'm never going to buy from you again, then it's super simple to run this on the comments that people enter. And if there's something really negative, really positive, you can take care of it. It's so easy.
That's really cool.
That's one example. Second example is fraud detection, which can happen in many different contexts. So for example, in a video game, when people are cheating in the game, there's algorithms that will go, and if you're a really mediocre player, and suddenly one day you're suddenly winning all the time, like there's something, we should probably
check you out.
You should probably check you out. So that would be another example. And we're actually building a demo that will show how to do that. So that's another example. Fraud detection, obviously, in financial companies or insurance. When you're doing claims processing in an insurance company, you probably have some algorithm. That's kind of the pride and joy of an insurance company, is whatever fraud detection, evaluation mechanism they built, they can run it like this. Much easier for them to do it that way.
So a couple questions here. You're using one endpoint of comprehend, but does this work for any of the endpoints, so you can detect syntax, detect key phrases?
Okay, so comprehend specifically is super easy because it's serverless. There are no endpoints at all. So it's just an API that's getting called behind the scenes.
Right, but the other features of comprehend, where you can hit the other, like you can call detect sentiment using the SDK, or you can call detect syntax.
Yeah, well, right now we support sentiment analysis. We're planning to add more capabilities. We need to think about how we would parse that data and put it back into a table in a relational database. So that's kind of what some of the things we're working on. In SageMaker, you do have an endpoint, because when you run the runtime of SageMaker, after you have an algorithm, gives you back an endpoint, which is what we call, and what you basically what you'll usually do, you'll write a wrapper function in SQL that will call the endpoint, so you don't need to repeat the endpoint again and again in every query. And
so you can make something like this almost.
And then it'll be something like this. And then you don't see the endpoint after the first time. Another thing you want to say is how many rows to send to those services at a time. Because this would really be slow if we went to that service for every row and came back, and went there and came back.
That's right.
The network latency would add up, so we don't do it that way. We do it in batches.
Batch requests.
And different algorithms are different in terms of how they do, like how well they handle batching. Some will be good with a 20-row batch, and another one with a 10,000-row batch. So we have some defaults, and you can configure that if your algorithm, if it has some sort of limits on scalability or whatever, then you can use that.
We had an interesting question from chat, right?
Okay.
So the question from chat was around, what kind of skill set do I need to actually utilize this?
So the main skill set that you need is you need to know how to do SQL programming.
Right. DB admin, app dev,
application development
categories, right?
Exactly. You don't really need to know much about machine learning unless you want to go into model training. And then that starts to get, if you want to learn that, then you can do it. Some people, I'm sure, will do that.
Right.
In other cases, you will have a data scientist maybe working for the same company that will build the models.
Right.
And all the application developers will use them and run predictions on that data.
And even SageMaker is intended, right, to target this audience, the same audience, to explore more into the machine learning.
Not every SageMaker user has to be a data scientist.
Right.
That's a special skill that is rare to find.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. I have to ask the hard question here too.
Yeah.
What about pricing?
I was just going there. I was like, all right, how does the pricing work?
How come people always bring that up?
Money.
So
money rules everything around me.
Okay.
That's why.
So the short answer,
technically, rules everything.
Not
around
that jacket.
The short answer is the price of this feature is 0, meaning that you pay for the services that you use. You've used Aurora, you pay for the Aurora instance. If it calls comprehend, you pay whatever comprehend costs, but no additional cost for the privilege of integrating the two. No. And people need to pay attention to what these services cost. And if you're going to run comprehend on millions of billions of rows, that'll add up. So you need to look at what you're using. Just like anything in the cloud, you pay as you go. So use what you need.
It's really, really cool. We have any questions from chat we want to ask? I think this is really, really awesome, and I actually can't wait to get my hands on it.
I think a lot of excitement about the pricing, number one, definitely, and just in general for the tool. I mean, this opens the door to people, like we were saying at the beginning of this, right? Like, I know SQL, I'm a DB admin, I'm an app dev, but often these don't intersect with data science, right?
They don't intersect, and either because it's hard to integrate, which I think is part of the reason, or people don't have the skills or something. Because why is not everybody running sentiment analysis on their user feedback? You would expect millions of websites to do that.
Totally.
We did it here with one line of SQL. Maybe
That's
this
so
was
cool.
not, yeah.
Right.
So
I think conversely as well, right? The data scientist community as well will benefit from this. They're writing SQL all the time. They know SQL well in typical cases, Python, R, right?
Yes.
But maybe transforming and moving data around is not their specialty.
Because they need to do it themselves.
Right.
Because they download it to Jupyter or something, and they do all the work manually.
Right.
And it's not online. Like, I'm sure that there's some companies that will, take all of the user comments, and then at the end of the month, somebody will do a dump, and then they'll look, well, what are the trends this month, and it's all manual. But doing it in real time when you can respond right away just by adding it to the application, that's
simple.
That's different. So
We got a question from chat from Wowie. Will it work for my on-prem SQL?
No, it will not work for your on-prem SQL. This is one of the privileges of, first of all, using a cloud database where we're configuring, setting all of this up, and being part of a major cloud provider. We have so much ML capabilities that we can use. I mean, people can always put ML functionality into their application, but that doesn't give you all the richness of SageMaker and all these other services.
Well, and Aurora.
And Aurora is the platform that you call it from, but I'm just saying in terms of ML functionality,
oh yeah,
that way you have it all in the cloud, and we can optimize performance and do all of that. So yeah.
So where can our customers go to learn more?
Okay, so a few ways to learn more. We published 2 blogs.
I'm gonna drop some links in chat for you guys.
Yep, last week. One of them was more of a technical blog where there was a walkthrough of some of the same things that we're doing today, and it shows how to use it. So that came out a week ago when we launched it. The second blog that came out was a more kind of general audience blog, so people who don't want to learn, less for users, but more for people who want to just understand why we did it and where it fits into into your kind of cloud strategy. So that's the second blog. There is documentation, obviously, which is pretty detailed and shows you step-by-step how to use this. Some web pages, and we're going to develop some tutorials pretty soon.
That's
awesome. So people can just launch this. There's a page at AWS called 10-minute tutorials for those who are not familiar, and we'll add one of those 10-minute tutorials to show how to do machine learning.
I had an interesting question from chat from David, DR47s. So what about writing your own, he calls them functions, maybe plugins type thing, right? Like this AWS comprehensive text sentiment.
Yes.
What if I want to write my own? Are you all thinking about that for the future, maybe, or
you can do it right now.
You can do it right now.
So yeah. So in
and call my own API.
Yeah. In a MySQL. Oh, you mean to replace this with a call to a different service, or to write my own SQL function?
Oh,
you can do a user-defined function in SQL.
Okay.
And you probably should if you've configured it like with an endpoint and a bunch of other parameters.
Sure.
Every algorithm might expect different parameters. So you should write a user-defined function in SQL that will call SageMaker. And then in SageMaker, you can run any algorithm that you want. So that pretty much covers you for any algorithm. You just write that function in SQL.
Okay.
And we show examples of how to do that.
This was super cool. Thank you so much for coming on Twitch. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll be back with more content soon. Right now, I got to get AM off the stage and get him in a new outfit. We'll be back soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you.